It's Amber. It's Amber. So, hey y'all, it's Bar says so. I'm here with my guest, Steven.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you, thank you. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Like, what's your background? Any brief?
Man, there's so much I could say. I don't know. I've always struggled with this sort of question because I feel like I do a little bit of everything. I guess from 9 to 5, I'm a project manager, but I also have some background in graphic design, web design. I used to podcast myself, hoping to get back into the podcasting community soon.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like I'm like a human Swiss Army knife.
So, yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about the dating scene and the dating world as a
Hmm.
millennial. I have a list of questions. We were having conversation about it recently, so I figured, hey, why not have it on the pod? How has the dating landscape changed for millennials compared to previous generations, in your opinion?
That's a very loaded question because it's changed completely. When you're speaking about previous generations, there was something to be said about a man having the confidence to approach a woman in the correct sort of manner and asking her, proper questions to initiate that first conversation. And now, depending on where you land in sort of the social stratosphere, like there's different methods. You have people who are strictly like slide in the DMs or use dating apps, or then you also have people who's like, oh, like I have a section, I got bottles, like you should come to me, or I'm gonna send my mans to go holler at the girls. It's definitely switched up and changed dramatically, and I think also from the standpoint of like expectations, which that's a whole conversation within itself of like what are like our parents' expectations when dated, in terms of like what are the things that an ideal partner has to check off for them to be the person for me versus what we have as our checklist nowadays.
I seen not too long ago was like a conversation on a podcast. I don't know who it was. I can't say the name of the show or anything, but they were saying like back in the day, the standards to be married, let's say, because I date for marriage.
Hmm.
A lot of people date just, for a meal or just for the experience. For people back in the day to be married, it was just for provider. Like, oh, this man knows how to build. He knows how to
Hmm.
date.
Sense of
Like
security.
yeah, something like that. And these days, like you said, everybody has their own standards and they're way higher for some. Some are more simpler, but what are some of your standards when it comes to
Oh, I think I'm
dating?
pretty like simple but then complex at the same time. Like, and I also feel like it's different for men dating women versus women dating men. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but my assumption is for a population of women, they still have that same sort of standard of like, if I'm going to date you, there's a level of security and financial gain, well, not financial gain, financial status you should have, and not in terms of you need to support me, but in terms of you should be able to at least support yourself. And God forbid something was to happen, if we're in a relationship and God forbid something was to happen, you'll be able to at least take care of certain things in that time span. But at least for me, just honestly, it boils down to like respect. I'm big on respect. I'm big on common courtesy. I'm especially big on like communication because I try to break out of, some of the patriarchal structures that exist. So it's like a lot of times women don't feel comfortable about expressing themselves about certain things like, oh, I don't want to nag him. I don't want to bitch and complain. But it's like, I can't necessarily change my behavior if you don't say how you're feeling, or maybe I'm unintentionally doing something that could be triggering to you from a previous experience. So I'm big on like communication. So that's the only way both of us can get better and grow as an individual and then also as a couple. And then yeah, so it's like that base foundation. And then if you want to like nitpick, like of course you want somebody that is physically attractive or whatever it is that you're attracted to physically. I like a short girl. I like a girl, got some curves. Doesn't matter if it's whether it's natural or she had surgery like that. That's not a deciding factor for me. Like it doesn't make a difference. Like, if I'm attracted to you, I'm attracted to you. And then I think probably the most important factor for me is like, what do you like to do with your downtime? So it's like me, I'm naturally like an introvert. So it's like I don't really care for day parties. I don't really care for like spaces where there's huge crowds and, music blasting to the point that you can't even really speak to the person next to you. Like I like very intimate settings. So it's like I would prefer to date somebody who has similar interest in that. So like I remember back in the day, I forget the name of the show. I think it was called Blind Date. And it used to come on at like 11 or midnight or whatever. And essentially it'd be like these two people never met each other, throw them in a van. They had that initial conversation. And then like they always did like a series of dates. So like the first date is like some activity. Like we'll go to like a karate class or pottery class. So it's like stuff like that is like is what I would want to do with somebody. It's like we don't care about what everybody else got going on, who got bottles, who had like none of that shit matters to me. It's like what are we doing and are we enjoying our time together? Like I'm big on quality time.
And are we like getting to know each other too? Because
Right.
there's certain settings where the guy thinks, okay, I want to take her to this fancy spot. The whole time, like you said, he's competing with the table next to him as far as how many bottles he just purchased or
Right,
whatever. So
right.
there's definitely that. For me, I would say definitely communication is key. I feel like in the little bit of dating that I've encountered, I feel like there's a lack of just, like you said, expressing how one feels. I'm an open book, so I'll definitely tell you how I feel. And that makes people uncomfortable. Some people don't know how to react to that. They get intimidated and will probably back off. So self-sabotage. We've talked about that before as well. Yeah. I totally can relate to your standards for sure. And this following question, what are some common challenges that millennials face when it comes to dating?
That's a good question. I think for whatever reason, probably one of the biggest ones is men have become very entitled. So, like we mentioned before, of like previous generations, like the guy had to have a certain standard for himself in order to like approach a woman. It's like how he approaches her with respect or just making sure like he had his shit together. Nowadays you hear or see these stories where dude probably still live with his parents or he's still, you know, is dealing with his child's mother or living with his child's mother and, a bunch of other things and it's like the standard is just completely just altered and men have become so entitled and then they expect the woman to just give them everything like she needs to listen to me at all times and just do as I say. She needs to be somebody that's basically like a porn star in the bedroom, all this other stuff and he's not doing anything. He's not planning dates. He's not allowing a safe space for her to be able to communicate or just be a genuine partner. So yeah, shit is crazy out here. The audacity is an all-time high.
Yes.
All-time high.
I definitely will say from my personal experience that there are people who aren't being honest about their current situation. And I don't think that hiding it or lying about, what your situation is the right way to move. Because there are people who are understanding, who will understand that, there's inflation happening right now. So some people did have to move back to their mothers because they couldn't afford the increase in rent,
Right.
They may still have their six-figure salary, but now they're learning that, okay, well, I don't want to invest my money into rent. Maybe I want to own, so I'm going to have to take a seat, and that's understandable, but you have to have that conversation with said person that you're interested in and want to have these connections, intimacy, relationships with. But if you don't give the woman autonomy, and you just kind of swindle it. It's like,
Right, right.
how did we get here and why? Why am I now finding out about your
Yeah,
situation?
yeah, yeah. That's also a big issue of like people not being straightforward about what their intentions are and where they're at as in their life. Like they'll hide whatever it is because they know it's potentially a red flag, or they'll make it seem like, oh yeah, we want the same thing, and then lo and behold, they don't want the same thing. So it's like people are just weird.
Man,
The behavior just unprovoked.
yes,
Like it's really unprovoked, and it's
for the
like
most part.
you're getting people outside of their character when it could have just been avoided altogether.
Talk about it. So, next question. How has technology and social media influenced dating behaviors among millennials, in your opinion? Because social media is
Greatly.
such a great thing, like connecting people.
Yeah, I think it's had a profound impact. Because there's a lot of people, depending on what side of the spectrum you fall under, like there are people who do accept like initial interactions via social media. If they look at somebody's profile, they think the person is attractive, they'll consider, seeing where it goes off of that initial interaction. I think also from on the opposite end of the spectrum is I feel like technology is also cultivating a generation of people who don't know how to communicate well.
Mhm.
Because if you think about the early days of social media, like I think Twitter was like 200 something characters or whatever the case was. Like, and as time has gone on, whatever platform it is, they've found a way to like reduce the amount of time that you're intaking content. So in turn, like related but not related. So it's like I'm 36. Like I may text like my younger cousin. I'm texting like a full sentence and he's using like 5 words and like five of them and like three of them are like abbreviated. And it's like in turn, people are not developing proper communication skills because they're like using filler words or
Mhm.
using acronyms to like say certain shit versus like really getting their thought across. And I know there's like a double-edged sword kind of thing because we've all seen like people make fun of like, oh, this person sent me a fucking paragraph on
Right.
iMessage. Like I'm not reading that shit. But yeah, I think technology has like completely changed things. And I also feel like it's impacted like people's expectations as well of like now that you start to see celebrity for some people, you start to see celebrity lifestyles more from a transparent sort of perspective, then you just subconsciously like envy them and feel like you should be experiencing it too.
Mm.
And while that's fine, everybody can have their own level of expectations about what it is that they should be doing with their life or the kind of lifestyle that they should live. I think as a whole, we also got to be like realistic. Like there's
Yes.
a reason why it's called the 1% for, like
I,
there's only going to be a certain number of people in the population that's going to reach a certain tax bracket. And in turn, like you can't expect
to be flown out on a jet
yeah, or you
or
can't expect like, and even not to even say that you can't expect that, but you can't expect that you're going to cross paths with people who can provide you that. Like, funny enough, I was on Twitter like months ago. Somebody had like retweeted this girl, whatever it is that she said.
Mhm.
I just happened to notice the icon. I was like, the girl was attractive, so I just happened to check the profile. And I'm like scrolling through her Twitter or whatever, and then like I think she posted like a link of something,
Mhm.
and it was basically like a breakdown of like if you some website you could punch in like different statistics and it would determine like what is the percentage of the population that actually falls under that category.
Okay.
So I think she had mentioned like she wants to date a black man who's over 6 feet who makes over six figures,
Mm.
and then there's no way to tell if the number was accurate, but the number was like 0.8%. So it's like not even a full percentage if it is accurate.
Mm.
So if you take that as fact, that means only 0.8% of the population in the United States is over 6 feet, are black men, and make over six figures. That's across the country. And then two, what's to say that these people are in your vicinity? You know, unfortunately for a lot of us, we all come from like low income neighborhoods, and it's very rare or it's very difficult for many of us to escape those surroundings or live in a more affluent neighborhood. So in turn, you're going to be around people that's within the same tax bracket that you are in. So it's like if I'm that woman and I'm looking for somebody who fits that category, where are the places that those type of people are going to be at? They're probably not going to be at my local bodega. They're not going to be at my local liquor store, whatever else is around. Yeah, they're not going to be in those places. Like they're going to be outside of um your familiar surroundings. So it's like I think people kind of have to like adjust their expectations or put themselves in different scenarios. If this is who I really want to be with, or this is the type of person I feel like I need to be with, then you need to be in spaces that those people are going to be at. That means going to like conventions or going to, Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or I don't know, like anywhere those
There's
people will be at.
there's actually influencer. She's mainly on YouTube. I don't want
Hmm.
to even say her name, but she is coaching girls how to catch those kind of men. I think
Wait, I think I know who you're talking about. She's gone
sprinkle,
viral.
sprinkle.
Yeah.
So, I just find it funny because sometimes you can get caught up in that.
But yeah, you got to be somebody like you have to start to live that lifestyle or live as close to that lifestyle as possible so you can potentially rub shoulders with those type of people. So it goes back to what I'm saying of like you can't be doing certain shit and then expecting, to have access to that. Or if you do, more times than not, it's not going to be the type of individuals that you want to indulge in. So, when you do speak about, unfortunately, people who make six figures and are Black or Hispanic descent, they're probably athletes, they're probably entertainers, and chances of them being the type of respectable individual that you want them to be in a healthy relationship, it's probably not going to be pretty high.
Right, right, because they get so much attention from
Right,
everybody already,
right.
for sure. Next question. In your experience, what are the most popular dating apps or platforms used by millennials? If you could say.
The only dating apps that I would know of is Hinge. I think I've briefly may have heard somebody mention like Tinder, but then I also feel like I've also heard like Tinder is more so like a hookup app.
I've heard that too.
But yeah, I think Hinge is probably the more popular one that I've heard of people using.
I've never used Hinge, and Tinder I never downloaded it because of the bad
Reviews
reviews.
or feedback.
Right, right. But I recently seen a reel actually of what's it called? A couple that got married. They've been married for 7 years. They have children now, and they met on Tinder. I was like,
That's nice.
yeah,
What was their ethnic background?
white.
I feel like at least in our community, like Black and brown community, it's like a 50-50 split of how they view dating apps,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't blame them because wasn't it like a few years ago there was that guy who was like going around going on dates from a dating app and then like killing the women.
Yeah, I think they made a show on it, but I didn't watch it, but I did hear something.
That's a different podcast within itself. America's obsession with like creating content based off of like real life events that are really traumatic. Like
Yeah, that's weird.
capitalism is it's a nasty shit.
And going back to that, like we were talking about, we wouldn't want to date outside
Date outside our race.
of our race. So with knowing who we are and where we come from, I just feel like a lot of who we are still has a lot of healing to do. A lot of like digging and we don't surround ourselves in the spaces where that's where I was going, where we would flourish the best, I say. The spaces that I would want to be in, where I would want to meet somebody,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't see people like me. That's where I'm getting at in
Got
the
you.
conversation. So, what do you feel are like some things to change in that aspect? Or how could we make up, like promote people to kind of stop doing what we've normally been doing as a community and kind of like, I don't know, heal?
I think, well, one, in terms of just the phrase healing, like I think we have to understand that you never stop healing. Healing is a lifelong process. Like there's always going to be new shit that you experience and you gotta eventually heal from or past experiences, because there definitely could be the case of like trauma and stuff passed down from one generation to the next. So that's one. And then in terms of like stepping outside of our shell, I think it's just, doing the little things. It doesn't have to be drastic. Like you don't have to, I don't know, like go to the Hamptons or some random shit. Like just do little shit. Like there's plenty of stuff, especially if you're somebody that lives within the tri-state area. There's plenty of shit to do in New York City. Go to a festival. You could, go to art galleries. You could do just shit that you don't normally do, and you'll be surprised that sometimes, even though it may be a majority of people who don't look like us, there might be one or two that do, and may lead to something. It may strike up a conversation. Or sometimes, a lot of times, there's a bunch of shit that we want to do and we just push it off and never make it a priority. And I think that also is a way of helping, just being exposed to different things. And I think also is like really having an honest conversation with ourselves of like, I know, I don't know if I've seen this recently, but I definitely know like years ago, like people would complain about like I only like every time I give a dude my number from a club, all he want to do is just smash. And it's like, okay, think about the nightlife experience. Men and women go to the club for two different reasons. Women go to the club to hang out with their homegirls and have a great time, drinks, food, whatever the case is. Typically, dudes kind of go to the club for a great time, but more than likely they're looking to see who's somebody who's promiscuous enough or sexually liberated enough, and sometimes unfortunately drunk enough to come back to the crib. So it's like that may not be the type of environment that you should be date attempting to find somebody that you want to date seriously. Maybe the day party is I feel like day parties kind of is like that, but not really. But yeah, like identify like, okay, these are the places that I typically frequent. Of the places that I typically frequent, these are the type of individuals that I constantly keep interacting with. So clearly there's something about those spaces that's not conducive to what it is that you want from a healthy relationship. What are the other options? Maybe it's going to brunch, or maybe it's like going on solo dates, and maybe it's like, I always go to my local supermarket. Maybe I'll go somewhere else this time and take an Uber back, and like just doing different things and seeing what happens. Or like we mentioned before, like maybe I'll take a pottery class or do a karate course or whatever. You have Groupon, you have Living Social, like the internet, like there's Instagram pages dedicated to like shit to do around New York City. Catch a helicopter, take a water taxi, like do different things, and then see if you come across somebody that is of like mind, and then see where that goes versus constantly going back to the same pool, being around the same people and expecting different results.
Right. Insanity.
Exactly.
Okay, so are there any specific trends or patterns you've noticed in millennial dating preferences or behaviors?
I think a trend that I've noticed, particularly in my dating life, is that there are a lot more women who have experienced trauma than I've realized. And in turn, that trauma turns to self-sabotage. Women who have dealt with unideal previous relationships, and because it keeps happening, or because it's an extended period of time, they think that's how shit works. And so when they finally do meet somebody new and things are going positive, or they're starting to see that they're able to be vulnerable, that scares them, because then it's like the last time I was vulnerable, this guy mistreated me. So it's like instead of them constantly pushing through and seeing where it actually leads, they'll just end the shit and you know, move on with their life, because they feel like maybe they don't deserve to be happy. They don't understand. They wouldn't comprehend how to make the other person happy when the person isn't being toxic or different things of that nature. Or a lot of times you have women who, because they dated somebody for so long, and women are naturally nurturing individuals, they like submerge themselves to appeal to their partner so much that by the time that that relationship ends, they kind of lose their own identity. So they don't really know who they are. And so they have to rediscover, like, okay, what are the things that I actually like to do? And that's hard to like kind of do and then also date at the same time because it's easy to fall into, well, what do you want to do? Or, you know, whatever the case is. So I think that's probably been the most eye-opening experience for me because, you know, it happens one time, cool. But now it's happened like a few times and it's like, damn.
Are you learning to like maneuver with that and like kind of like
I don't think
fireworks?
shout out to Jersey City.
Right, yes.
I don't think there's really any way to maneuver through that in terms of there's nothing I could do. Like I'm also a strong believer of like, hey, if somebody I can only do so much to prove like my intentions are the proper intentions and I'm here for support and doing the right thing. So I also don't ever want to like beg or force somebody to be in a situation that they don't want to be in. So it's like I don't think there's really a maneuvering aspect to things. It's more so like, okay, this is what you've decided to do. I'm gonna let you go on your journey, and hopefully you feel like you made the right decision. Like it is what it is, and I also feel like there's really no way to even prevent like that from happening again because
There's no signs that you would
yeah, there's really
tell.
no sign that you could tell because everything could be great, and then when it hits somebody, it just hits them. So it's just, you know, taking it as a life experience and then hoping that the next one is different.
Right, definitely. That's why I think it's important for women to just take time before getting into any kind of dating situation. For me, I definitely took a 2 year pause from any interaction. I wanted to figure out who I was becoming after becoming a mom. Dating without a kid is one thing. You can be free, you can come home whenever you want and leave whenever you want. But when you have children, you have to think about, well, if I'm considering this person to be someone that I want to be in a partnership with, he has to be good with kids, he has
Right.
to like kids. So yeah, like definitely take the time to figure out what it is that you are missing within yourself before you waste somebody's time, because there are men out there who do want to settle down, who do want relationships, but because you haven't gone through that step and you're insecure, you're going to self sabotage, and miss out on amazing people. What impact has the hookup culture had on millennial dating and relationships, in your opinion?
Found everybody is like basically a parent now because of hookup culture. So many unplanned pregnancies. So that's one aspect to it. And then I also feel like it's become very normalized, which I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. Like people are entitled to do whatever it is that they want to do. I think the one negative to the hookup culture is that you know, now you have men who manipulate. So it's like they try to make it seem like they align, they want something more, but ideally they just really want to hook up. And they won't say that off the bat because they don't want to miss out on the opportunity of hooking up with said person. So that becomes its own thing as well. And I think as a byproduct of it, you have a population of women who, okay, if this is just going to be some sort of fling or whatever, it's like, what am I getting in return for this? So now you have a population or a group of women who, if I want to participate in hookup culture or you're going to try to bring me into this culture, what am I going to get out of it? So it's like, you got to meet a certain tax bracket. You have to be able to buy X, Y, and Z. You have to do whatever the case is.
Right.
And I feel like while all of that is fine for both parties, men and women, I also feel like they need to operate in their own little ecosystem. The issue is that mainly the men, not more so the women, but mainly, well, no, yeah. So like they need to operate in their own
Yes.
ecosystem. Like men who participate in hookup culture need to be around women who want to hook up
Right.
and meet whatever it is that those women are expecting. So for the women that don't want to participate, leave them alone. And then also like the men who recognize women from that particular culture or whatever and their expectations, leave them alone. Because you also have a population of men who like, you know, because she looks like this and she fits, the certain, I don't want to call it like Instagram model or
It's a fetish.
yeah, like that. But at the same time, you know that she wants certain things. You know she wants somebody who makes a certain thing. Yeah, like she wants to do who makes a certain amount of money. She wants to do who's able to afford certain things, and you trying to bring her down to your level. And it's like, no, she's already identified what it is that she wants. Whether you feel like it's
something you
irrational, yeah, like that's had nothing to do. Like whether you feel like it's right or wrong, that's what she's determined. That's what she wants. She's entitled to go after what she wants.
Right.
She's supposed to find somebody that's going to supply it. You shouldn't be one trying to think you're going to bring her down to your level or make a false, I guess, sense of identity or create a fake persona to try to appeal to that. Because you have dudes who do shit like that of like, oh, he pulls up in a car, but it's really his man's car.
Right.
Or, he got X amount of money, but he really be scamming. Like it's not really his money. Like, so it's like allow that culture for what it is to exist in the space that it is, and then people who don't participate, like leave us out of it.
Exactly, for sure. Because I've been a victim. There should be compensation for.
If you've been swindled from the years of 2010 to 2023, you're entitled to compensation.
Right, call this number. All right, let's see. What's next? Okay. Are millennials more focused on casual dating or seeking long-term relationships, in your opinion?
That's a tough one. I think it's a little bit of both. I think from a casual dating perspective.
Can we define casual dating in your...
I think casual dating is more so in the terms of like, I'm dating you for the moment, but I'm not really planning or thinking where this is going to go after that.
Okay.
We're just going to date and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
If it ends up being something cool, if it doesn't, then fuck it. It is what it is. Versus long term is like where you would expect more serious conversations up front or earlier parts of the relationship to get a sense of like, okay, where is this potentially going? Like, do we have the same viewpoints on marriage? Like, what is your stance on children? Like, do you want to own a house? Like, stuff like that. I think with the casual dating thing is totally fine, but it's also very dangerous because it makes people feel like people are expendable, which they are to an extent because, like, at the end of the day, like, nobody owes you anything, but at the same time, like, we should have a level of common courtesy. Like, people aren't objects, people have feelings. Like, whether we're casual dating or not, like, you should at least have some level of respect. And I think that respect factor is typically gone in casual dating because it's like, you're not supposed to get mad because you already know what this is. But it's like, no, I'm still a human being. I'm still going to feel if you do something that I find disrespectful or goes against something that I've said or may impact me, like I'm still going to have a human emotion to it. Like, so I think casual dating could be dicey there. And then I do think I think women honestly I think there's a disconnect between men and women when it comes to long-term relationships. I think women very much want long-term relationships, but I think there's also a population of men who do want it, but at the same time, they feel like they need to be very before they could pursue one.
That's always
which
the case.
Ties back to like your first question about like how the generations are different. Back then, like our parents was fucking broke. Like your mom, your grandmother. Obviously, the world was completely different back then, but like they weren't making that much money. No. They were just living within the means of whatever, the state of the world and work their way up and move up. Nowadays, it feels like, which, sometimes isn't getting brought up enough of like how much pressure is put on men to be, not even providers, but just like well-rounded and like fully established. Like you have to have a job, but it has to be a particular job because I haven't personally experienced it, but I've definitely have like seen conversations around of like, wait, that's your title?
Right.
Like
You're a
people,
Popeyes manager?
yeah, like, and we've seen those conversations like how some women will respond based off of somebody's title and things of that nature. So you have to have a job and it has to be a particular title.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you need to be within a certain tax bracket. Doesn't necessarily have to be six figures, but you have to be able to afford a certain lifestyle. So like constant dates, trips every so often, which is not unreasonable or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case is. But then it's like, okay, do you have your own place? Because it's like, I don't want to come over and your roommates are here. Like, I want to have a little sanctuary for us. Do you have a car? Like, I've know plenty of women friends who they don't believe in public transit. It's Uber everywhere, or whoever they're dating has to drive them to, whenever they're out or things of that nature. So it's like so many things, and like you mentioned before, like inflation or whatever, like cost of living is going up
Yeah.
and salaries are not. And so in order for you to have certain things and for things to look a certain way, like you need a lot of fucking money.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, like that's a lot of work in order to get to that status. So I feel like a lot of times men uh push off dating because they feel like I need to check off every box before I go out there because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be, you know, rejected or looked down upon because I didn't have this one thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have an apartment, but I have a roommate. Or yeah, I have a car, but it's an older model. Or yeah, you don't want to have like that quote unquote red flag. But I also feel like that being said, there's a population of women who are totally fine if you're not
Right.
completely, whatever, if you're not a quote unquote finished product.
With your list.
Yeah, but I feel like those two populations do not communicate or
No.
don't see each other for whatever reason
I
that may
know what it
be.
is.
Because I see both sides. Like
I do too.
I see both sides where I see women who's like, yo, I don't need you to be fucking rich. I don't
Right.
need you to do
Like, let's
X, Y, and
build. What happened to building together, being a
yeah,
team, and then understanding, okay, well, this is what you want, so let me help you with your resume. Or maybe I can connect you to somebody
right.
who owns an affordable, condo that they're renting.
Right. And I think that disconnect is definitely spurned off of social media and
Mm-hmm.
like, well, this rapper, he bought his girl this and, he paid for her business or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case is. So it's like subconsciously the dude is thinking, well, if I can't do that shit, then I'm gonna just mind my business and stay to myself
Right.
because if that's the competition out here, because,
And that's self-sabotaging.
yeah, that's definitely a form of self-sabotaging because you're gonna go scroll through the comments and then you see all these women that you probably find attractive and they're like, look at him doing this for his girl, whatever. And then you just hear like, damn, all I could do is just, pay for your Uber ride home. Like I can't pay for your business. So it creates a huge disconnect in that aspect.
It's unfortunate. I think a lot of people would rather long-term casual dating than a long-term serious relationship. Would you agree?
Interesting.
Because I feel like
Um,
people they get comfortable. They don't want to do the hookup thing, so they find somebody who is okay with casually
dating
being with each other, but won't put the title to it because they're just not ready.
expectation.
Right.
I think I don't know if it applies to everywhere, but I definitely remember an article I seen years ago of like if the reason why dating in New York, which I would assume also impacts Jersey, Connecticut, any of the nearby states or whatever. But one of the reasons why dating in New York is so difficult because it's a hustle mentality. You're always chasing the better job. You're always chasing a better apartment. You're always chasing more money. And subconsciously, you kind of do that in relationships. It's like, yeah, you cool, but
I
I'm
think you can
sure,
do better.
yeah, I think I could do better. Like, you cool, but there might be somebody who's prettier, or somebody who got a fatter ass, or somebody who don't do this, somebody who don't do that. So I think that's probably why the long-term casual thing is there. So it's like when things end, it's like, well, we wasn't serious anyway. Never had conversations about being serious. Like you already knew where I was at with it. I already knew where you was at with it, so it's easier to cut ties versus long-term dating. If I want to cut ties, then somebody has to be the bad guy.
And I think that social media has a lot to do with why men and women think, well, the next best thing is on its way. Because they see like
Right.
all these options, all you gotta do is scroll and find yourself somebody who's like, attractive or whatever,
Hmm.
or does the things that you want to partake in. And then bam, all you gotta do is send a personal message and
Right. Yeah.
sometimes it's that easy.
People, yeah, people are more accessible in that facet.
Hmm.
Then it's also funny of how that's the case, but then they'll always remind you that like social media is still fraudulent to an extent. Like you could put out a persona. In my personal opinion though, you could kind of point that out.
Especially with all the catfish episodes and seasons, I think
Right,
we
right. Even
learned a
beyond
little
like the
bit.
catfish stuff, like if somebody like you could, I've always like, I guess this is like a little secret, but like one of like the earliest conversations I have with somebody that I'm pursuing is like, yo, I could analyze your social profile and just like identify what your personality trait is based off of that, or like identify different aspects. If you don't have a lot of pictures, clearly you're not a social media person. If your pictures don't normally include anybody outside of you, that means either your circle is small or you don't really have that many friends. Um, or clear indicators, most of your pictures you're abroad, so traveling is very important for you. So it's like while there you could position things to make it seem like you could tell when shit is not real, there are multiple factors where it's like, okay, this is who this person really is, and to a certain extent, or they're showcasing sides to their personality that you could also pinpoint.
That's true. Okay. How does the financial aspect play a role in millennial dating?
It plays a huge role. We've discussed bits and pieces of it. How some men feel like they need to be of a certain status in order to date. I think also numbers reflect and show that, as I would say, for at least Black women. I don't know if Latinx women also fall into this category, but I know for Black women, more Black women are the ones that are the high earners. Like they're the ones that getting the bigger degrees, finishing school. So in turn, they're the ones that's becoming the higher earners, while a lot of the men aren't finishing school or earning that much money in comparison, which then creates a very weird dynamic because I don't want to use the phrase, but for the lack of a better term, it's like you're kind of dating down because you're dating somebody who's not within the same tax bracket. And then that's difficult because a lot of the male ego, especially when it comes to dating or relationships, is tied to what can I provide for you from a financial standpoint. And if you make more money than me, then you don't need me financially, which is where men tend to falter and their insecurity pops up because it's like it's more than about the money. Like, yes, a woman would ideally date somebody who's financially secure. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to make six figures, but you're able to support yourself and do things that you need to do. Like, you've seen or hear horror stories where like women go into a dude's house and he ain't got no furniture or his TV's on the floor. And that shows lack of priorities. It shows lack of financial security because where is your money going? Like, why don't you have fucking basic necessities? Right. So when a dude who isn't the high earner is dating somebody who makes more than them, it's like where are the other aspects to the relationship where you can flourish? Like, okay, she don't need your money, but like gifts are still a thing. Like being thoughtful, like doing things that will make her day easier, handling whatever chores, like I don't know, what any and everything. Like there's much more to support somebody outside of the finances. And I think that definitely plays a factor now when you talk about the disparity between the wages, or the huge extreme of like men who just don't got no job, don't make
Still
no
pursue that career.
yeah, like just doing God knows what, but then trying to pursue people. And it's like, I've always been a strong believer. If you ain't got your shit together or you can't afford to do certain things, then dating is probably not a priority for you right now. Like I remember I was telling somebody months ago, they had like they used to podcast and they had like a clip and she was basically saying like, if I'm trying to get to know somebody and he said the first thing is like a coffee date, like that's totally fine. And I'm like, no, you kind of setting the bar low. If it's like a situation where you guys are communicating and y'all have two really conflicting schedules and you want to meet up really quick, then cool. But like a first official date has to be dinner. Right. It has to be dinner and something else. It can't be dinner and a movie because you're not talking in a movie. But it has to be dinner and something else, like sitting down, being able to converse and actually discuss and get like a really early look into who this person is. And if this person can't afford to do that, then this person shouldn't be dating. So it's like the frustration you see on social media of like women like, yo, this guy reached out to me or whatever, and like the first time you want to link up, he talking about come to his crib, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. I don't know. It's financial. And you know what's so funny? That this question is one of those because I recently seen Monique, Monique, right, from the Parkers.
Yes, yes.
So she was basically saying that our community is pushing back a little bit because we are so caught up in the financial aspect. Everything is like, what can I bring to the table? Or what can she bring to the table? It's like, what about, accepting or having appreciation that this guy has his own place and he can cook, like little small things like that. It doesn't have to be, oh, he has a Lamborghini and, a Rolex. It could just be he's a kind, loving, sweet guy and he's managing, or he's a father, he's a good dad, an involved dad. That's attractive. Like people look at that and they're like, okay, well, I can see myself dating this person. I just feel like the superficial stuff that we do see on social media that people crave, and I feel like it's a trend because this came out of nowhere. I think it's like the city girls kind of have something to do with
Nah,
it.
it's been out. I feel like it's definitely been out even before them becoming popular. I think it's mainly due to like more celebrities and entertainers being on social media. So you could start to see like the things that they do for the people that they're involved with. But I always say like even in those circumstances of like people like having those sort of financial expectations, I still feel like they are not the majority. They're just, because it's social media, it feels like everybody's saying it. But when you look at the people, okay, what about the people around you? Are the people around you also pushing that sort of narrative? Probably not. They're probably more realistic about what it is that they want. So I try not to think like every woman that I meet or every woman that I come across is thinking I need to make X amount of money. Like I think it's a small percentage. And going back to, one of the previous topics is like those small percentage of people who think like that, they're in very specific environments. So it's like I'm not even worried or thinking I'm gonna cross paths with this person because I'm not in the same environments that they're gonna be in.
Right. Then the follow-up question to that was, are there any unique financial considerations to be aware of as far as like how financial roles play?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that was a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I think again, it's different for men when they view finances in dating in comparison to women because I never myself and even the male friends that I have, we never consider like I never thought about like what she does for work, like how much money.
Is that like something that you not necessarily care, but like,
Yeah, that doesn't impact me.
okay.
Like the only reason why I may ask, obviously you ask to just find out, but the only reason why I may want to know from a deeper level is like, okay, based off of what your title is or what you do, how does that impact your stress? So it's like if you work somewhere that's a highly stressful environment, there's a chance that stress may spill over into whatever we got going on.
Okay.
Or maybe because of your work, you are not as available as I would be. But in terms of like, okay, well, you do this, so that means you make X amount of money, like that's never been a concern of mine. Like me personally, I've always Like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I'm some sort of high earner, but also at the same time, I've never been one to like women that I'm dating to like spend money around me. So it's like if I'm taking you out, like I'm taking you out, like I'm paying for everything. Don't worry about it. If we're out together and we're doing shit, like
You
it's
hear that, ladies?
my card, my card that's being used or whatever. So it's like that's yeah, it never crosses my mind, but I think it's different for women because again, if most women, if we're going back to that stat of like most black women or women in general are the high earners, like you want to deal with somebody who has financial stability.
Right.
Like you'd be
That's
very
like the best
surprised.
thing.
I don't even say you, but it's very alarming. Like you see somebody out and about, you think this is a very normal everyday person, and then when you really get to know them, like their life be in fucking shambles and you would never know. And it's like, yo, like, and then like you're 30 something years old. Like, why are you not getting it together? Now, granted, life is fucking hard,
Yes.
but there's just certain shit that's like just completely
At
uncalled
any
for.
age like that, you know.
Right, right. And then at the same time, if you know this is what is going on, why are you dating?
Right. That's the question
Why are
it
you
boils down
dating?
to.
Like, get your shit together, however long that takes you,
Mm.
and then
Leave people alone.
or if you really need companionship, find somebody that's gonna meet you where you at.
Right.
Don't expect somebody who's, not I don't want to say above you, but has a different lifestyle and expecting them to come back down to what you're experiencing.
Right.
If your financial situation is shaky, you can't go on dates, but this is somebody who takes themselves out all the time, like that's not gonna work out. Like leave them alone. Go find the shorty who don't give a fuck about leaving the crib and don't want to be taken out. Like go date her. You got I think that's the thing. Like the theme of this whole conversation is like finding people and meeting them where they're at. Wherever you're at, like I always say, like there's levels to the shit. Like you have to understand where you at
Right.
level wise. Like whether it comes to looks, whether it comes to financial status, lifestyle, or whatever. Figure out where you're at in those sort of parameters, and then that way you'll be able to determine the type of people that you need to engage with. Like a lot of times, like I mentioned, people don't date within their parameters of like dudes trying to date women that they can't afford, or women, you know, dating down and then getting mad when, well, not getting mad, but women dating down and then dudes getting insecure about dating a woman who makes more money than them. Probably shouldn't have dated him in the first place. And not to say that financial status is like this big thing, but it's like there's very few men that are secure enough to date somebody who's a high earner. Me, make me a house husband. Listen, I cook, I clean. I ain't gotta work no more. Say less. Say less. I'll do that. I'll wear an apron and everything.
Man, listen, you say that now, but I heard stories about men dealing with women who, make more
Listen,
money.
as long as she don't talk down, as long as she don't talk down on me, I'm with the shits. This working shit is for the ghetto.
Yeah, I don't want to work anymore either.
I'm
Keeping it
good.
G. So if you're listening out there and you want someone who cooks and cleans, but you make the
My
money.
DMs are open. My DMs are wide open.
Right, okay. How does the work-life balance of millennials affect their dating lives, in your opinion?
I think our generation is actually doing a good job with that, to be quite
Right.
honest.
We've
I
evolved.
feel like our parents are the ones who worked, and never really found that life balance stuff because a lot of them were also young parents.
Hmm.
And so in turn, like it was work, and then I have to work because I need to raise this child. And while a lot of us also are parents, I still think we do an amazing job of trying to find that same sort of balance, even if it's not by ourselves and we're experiencing it with the kid, but at least exposing ourselves to shit that we probably wouldn't have if we followed the model that our parents did. So I think we're doing a great job in terms of the work-life balance thing. And even the phrase itself was not something you heard 10 years ago.
No.
Like it's become more of a norm now because these are the things that millennials are demanding. in the workforce. It's like, hey, I'll do the work, but I also need my fucking time to myself to decompress, to do shit. Like, I'm not
I
trying
don't
to
need to be
be
in the office 5 days a week.
right. Like, I need to be able to like enjoy my youth and enjoy my time and
Mm-hmm.
do things outside of work that appeal to me. And in turn, that makes me a better worker because I'm re-energized when it's time to work.
Right.
And so I think our generation is doing a great job at that. And I feel like it's only going to push more as you now start to hear more and more conversations about possibly going to a 4-day work week and seeing how that's been beneficial in other countries. So it's like we're doing the work in that sort of aspect because it's very important. Like, we think life is like this long thing, but it really isn't. Like,
No.
it really isn't. I was just 18 years ago. You couldn't, I, you, at 18, I would have thought I would have had my life figured out at a certain point, but
Mm.
you just go through so many ups and downs, and before you blink, or when you start to feel like, okay, I could breathe now, you'll be like, shit, I'm fucking 36. Damn, like now I'm supposed to like start preparing to like slow down a little bit. And it's like I didn't even have really the chance to like really, go hard. Work-life balance, I think we're doing a great job at, and I hope to see more advancements of it.
Amen. Yes, me too. Are there any specific tips or advice you would give to millennials navigating the dating scene in their 20s to 30s?
Understand who you are. And if you don't know who you are, that's okay, but do the work to try to find it out. I think a lot of times people don't really know who they are, and so in turn they don't know what they want, and then in turn they try to date somebody and it's just a complete mess because their thoughts or their expectations just constantly keep evolving and changing because they don't have that sense of identity of like, okay, this is who I am, this is what works for me, these are my expectations, these are the things I want to do, and it just becomes a mess. So I think the most important thing is like defining who you are and what it is that makes sense for you and what it is that you want. And then the biggest thing with anybody, communication. Whatever it is that you want. You want to just be part of the hookup culture? Communicate that.
Mm.
You want to casually date? Communicate that. You want to have the intent of dating long term? Communicate that. You want to do any of those things but have some sort of level of hesitancy because of previous experiences? Communicate that. People can't operate or make decisions if things aren't communicated. So it's like, yeah, ideally, I wouldn't want you to do X, Y, and Z. But because you communicated it, now I know how to move forward or how to maneuver.
Right.
So I think the two biggest things that I could tell anybody is like, understand who you are in this point in time,
Mhm.
what it is that you want and seek, and then communicate that. Whether you communicate to yourself repeatedly or you communicate it to anybody that you indulge in. Because like I mentioned earlier, everybody just gotta find somebody where they meet at. You wherever whatever it is that you're looking for, you gotta meet somebody there. Things are so much smoother that way.
Right. I think those are great tips and advice.
I might need to write a book or something.
Great. I like the conversation. Is there anything more you want to add as far as dating and like things
My
that
number is seven. No, no, not really. I just think overall, and this kind of ties into dating of like, from a pessimistic standpoint, we're all fucked.
yes.
We're all fucked because we live in a very fucked up society. There's a lot of things in place that aren't beneficial to all. So patriarchy, capitalism, discrimination, racism, whatever the case is. So we're all fucked to a certain extent. I think just overall of like peace, happiness, and tranquility is something that should be a focal point for everybody.
Right.
And for any particular individual, create your ecosystem. Whatever it is that it incorporates. Your home, making it feel like a home, the things that you do throughout the day that appeal to you. If you're somebody that works out, if you're somebody that, I don't know, likes to go on walks, take in scenery, be in nature, go on hikes, whatever, any of the things that you thoroughly enjoy, going to movies, going to speakeasies, whatever it is. Like all of these things are part of your ecosystem, and don't allow anybody to bring any level of toxicity to your ecosystem. Because when anything toxic is in an ecosystem, it immediately kills something and then it just continues to spread and kill other shit. So don't allow anybody, whether it's friends, family, significant other, potential significant other, to come in and bring toxicity to your ecosystem. Create it, nurture it, help it grow, and then the people that you allow to be around you, make sure these are people that are watering and also nurturing your ecosystem in whatever facet that needs to be. And in turn, like, you'll just live a happy life, man. Like, this shit is difficult, but it's really easy at the same time. And that peace of mind is probably the most priceless thing you could ever own in your entirety. Like, yeah, you can have a house and a car, sneakers and clothes and all this jewelry and all that shit. But peace of mind, like being able to wake up with a level of calmness about yourself and a level of calmness about the things that you're indulging and the people around you, like you can't replace that with anything. You just got to be mindful of those things and be mindful of how you want to feel externally, and that way you'll be able to make better decisions for yourself and people around you.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that book, man. I'm gonna write that book.
I think so. I think it'll be definitely a bestseller, and that people need to learn through these conversations. I feel like there's not enough of these conversations because everybody's so tied up on the 50-50, the what are you bringing to the table, the how much you make. Like those are things that, okay, yes, you want to know what traits and skills people have, but it's not the focal point of like life, can we barter? Like can I show you a skill and you show me a skill, and then maybe, I don't know. For
Right.
me, there's more to life than a bank account, and conversations like this will probably, give people a different kind of perspective of reality.
Right. And then you don't even have to listen to us. Go
Right.
go to therapy.
Right.
Everybody needs therapy.
Mm,
Like, to piggyback off of what you're saying, like, people gotta stop looking at social media figures as, role models and whatever. And not to say that some of these figures give bad information, because some of them actually do give really good and constructive feedback, but you also have to have a level of nuance to understand whether this applies to your life. You can't just automatically think, well, this sounds good or this sounds appropriate and I'm gonna just do it. Like,
right.
okay, you need to understand the nuance of certain things. Like, you don't know this person's circumstances, you don't know their experiences that led them up to the point of them saying what it is that they're saying. So it's like, yes, this may be positive and it's framed accordingly, and it might be great advice, but you need to still also have that nuance. With that being said, these are not, these people just have large social media followings. You have no
We are not.
idea. Yeah, like, you don't know what their credentials are, if they even have credentials. So it's like, if you're unsure, you're lost about yourself, dating or whatever, go to therapy.
Right.
Find a therapist, go to a licensed professional, and speak to somebody who is professionally trained to unravel your thoughts and help you see different perspectives or just help you align with certain shit. I think too often, because our phone is literally in our hands all the time, so many people just turn into sheep and just like start following somebody just for the sake of like, they sound like they know what they're talking about. And it's like, you don't even know where any of this is rooted from. Like, these things that they're saying could actually be more harmful to you than actual good.
Yes.
So it's like, go to an actual licensed professional to get the information that you need.
Exactly, for sure. I agree. There are various sites, betterhelp.com. That's one that I've seen a lot these days. If you're the type that needs to be on your phone and doesn't want to talk to a person in front, there's that avenue. This is not a plug-in, but I'm just all for pushing people in the right direction and having, spaces where you can discuss, and being a person. If you ever need a, person, ask first though to speak to. Definitely reach out, to anybody or to me because, there are people who feel like they need to hide or
Mhm.
hurt themselves because they can't talk to someone. So definitely reach out, talk. That's what humans are here for,
Right.
I think.
I agree. I think there's no greater impact. Well, I think everybody's legacy or their role as a human being is to impact somebody in some sort of facet and leave them better than you found them.
Amen. Just dropping gems.
Listen, I'm here all night.
All right. Well, thank you again for sitting down and having this conversation. I think it's very important.
Thank you for having me.
There soon will be more. I'm looking forward for your show when it comes back on. I know you said you were in the works.
Yeah,
So,
I got a few stuff on the plate. Just need to make some time to figure that out, work on some logistics, work on some art. Yeah, but there'll be more stuff coming soon from my side.
sounds good. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Signing out.